Ladies and gentlemen, the champ is here. No, I'm not talking about Bubba. This is episode number 25, people. We had to bring in the big guns. A story you've all heard about, but you really have no idea. You want encouragement? Let me put it to you this way. If you look up the word resilient in the dictionary, you will find a picture of today's guest, Brock Beesecker. This kid is more than your local weightlifting meathead mechanic. He's also a rising star in the sport of kickboxing. Even the dangerous kind with knees and elbows. But don't let the lethal weapon fool you. He's a thinker too. So if you want to go deep in thought, you're in the right place. Just like in high school, we're going to give the Beesecker kid the ball and just let him run with it. Here's your host, and Brock's new #1 fan, Bubba Seaman.
Thank you everyone. What is up? Man, it's good to be back. I had worked a few episodes ahead leading up to the big wedding. Of course, I'm talking about my daughter Bridget and my new son-in-law Ryan. So, and I may even insert an episode here before you guys actually heard this one. I think I'm going to do one in between the wedding and this episode today. And then I'll also do one with the newlyweds in the very near future as well. So if you're wanting to hear from them, we're going to have them on, and they're going to share quite a bit with you. So that'll be a good one. But we have a great episode in store for you today. And I wanted to once again just make sure and tell you guys how thankful I am for your support so far. We're closing in on the 1-year mark, and we're still growing. I watch those numbers like a hawk. We're still growing thanks to all of you. I want to thank you guys for the encouraging words I've gotten from a lot of you, especially, the Petersons, the Nesbitts. They're like basically financial sponsors. They keep giving me money because they're so passionate about what I'm trying to do here. And so that means a lot to me, even though I don't ask for it. I'd rather people just buy shirts and hats, but they're on board for sure. But you guys, sometimes you just say nice things, encouraging things. I have a buddy at the office, Dave Spear, recently said, I wouldn't be the man I am today without the podcast. I think he was being sarcastic. And you can laugh. Like, if something's funny, you can laugh. That's okay. And then after I had this big attempt to get some email content, because I really want to do just an email, like a mailbag episode. So I offered prizes to the first 5 people who would email me. And I had another guy in the office, Cole. He sends me an email, and he says something about wanting to hit the Chinese buffet with me sometime, because I said if I get down to 200 pounds, I'm going to the Chinese buffet. And he's like, oh, I want in on that. So, that stuff's, I guess it's not that encouraging, but we're just being funny. But as long as you're listening, that builds me up and keeps me going. So, and to the audience, like you guys, you can be a part of this our rise in the charts by making sure you subscribe, follow, like, wherever you listen. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, it doesn't matter. Leave us a 5-star rating. Follow our Instagram and our Facebook. Our guest today is adamantly trying to talk me into starting a TikTok. He says that's how you get views, man. That's how you do it. So I might have to take his advice on that. But follow our Instagram and our Facebook. Share with all your friends on your social media. That's probably the biggest thing you can do. And then the other thing, of course, is show off your impeccable taste by sporting some of our merch. We don't got a lot of it, but it sure does look good. Shirts, hats, whatever you want, we'll hook you up. And then send us a picture of yourself wearing our awesome gear. Okay? Man, it feels weird to say all that stuff because I'm just a guy trying to do something meaningful down here, and then I come out sounding like a car salesman, like a used car salesman. I hate reading those lines, but you got to do it. So let's get to the encouraging stuff. I got a great guest for you guys today. Let me just put it to you like this. The champ is here. All right? Some of you guys will know what that means. You're going to want to share this episode with everyone you know, especially young people with, some traumatic childhoods or maybe a dysfunctional family background. The list goes on and on. This kid is going to relate to these guys. But for me, I would encourage you to share what you're about to hear with the excuse makers in your life. Because my guest today proves that we are not destined to be a product of whatever bad situations we experience in our lives. If that were true, this kid wouldn't be sitting here today. He's one of the most resilient young people I've come to know, And I know some people, let me tell you, I know some people with some bad past, but man, and this is no fairy tale where the ending is just happily ever after. He's not on easy street. He's still working things out, but I can clearly see he's on the right track. So I got into this business, if you call this thing a business, to encourage people, and he has actually encouraged me since I've got to know him. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we got Brock Beesecker in the basement today. What is up, man?
What's going on?
He's in there holding back his laughs. He doesn't think he's supposed to say anything while I'm going on that big spiel there. But so let me tell the audience, Brock knows all this stuff. But for our pre-episode meeting, because I don't know Brock that well, we gotta. If you come on the podcast, which I'd love you to, so please reach out to me. If I don't know you that well, we got to get together so I can kind of at least know a little bit about your story or whatever. And so he shows up for this pre-meeting. Usually takes an hour or so. He shows up with a couple cans of this flavored carbonated water, this liquid death, and he goes, "Hey, one of these is for you, big guy." And most people, they're not like us, Brock. They think that water's disgusting. That flavored carbonated water, right? But to me, like a little bit goes a long way with me. So I was like, holy cow, this kid just brought me like something to drink. And, little did I know I was actually going to need the extra hydration. Those meetings, like I said, take an hour usually, if we even have to have one. If we have a history together, we don't even need to have one. I know who you are. And they just talk about their life and kind of get me up to date or whatever. But me and Brock met on a Friday after he got off work, and it nearly went into Saturday morning. All right, so it was like 5 or 6 hours. And we spent a little time breaking the ice by talking about high-performance imports. He owns one. I own a wannabe high-performance import. And so we probably spent 30 minutes off the bat just talking cars and stuff like that. So that's why we got that picture in front of his turbo Subaru out there. We'll make sure that's in the video and everything. We just talked about modifying these small engine but, big boost tuner dream cars and all that stuff. We found out we both love the same old school original Xbox game, UFC Tap Out, for all you old school MMA fans. Yeah, we both like that one. We both like to take opportunities to speak truth and wisdom from experience to younger people. That's actually how this episode started. Brock keeps saying today, he goes, man, this has been a long time in the making. And it has. But it actually started when I heard you spoke to the high school track team.
Yes.
Right? And James comes home and says, Dad, this guy sounded a lot like you. He said kind of the same stuff, about making good choices and things like this. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I think that kid follows the podcast. Let me reach out to him. And months later, we're here. That's all it takes. So,
yeah, this has been a long time coming.
Yeah. We didn't give up, man. We made it happen. To be honest, I wish I would have heard from someone like you when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I really didn't, because I had that big fish in a small pond syndrome, and yeah, I could have used some real world experience like that. But yeah, I remember you were one heck of a tough running back and linebacker too, right? What'd you play on defense?
Linebacker.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I just remember, you can tell when certain people have a certain style.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you mentioned I don't want to give away future content, but when we get into the Doug Heffernan segment or stuff, if you bring this up, like there was a game where you said, I just felt unstoppable. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I remember that game, because it was like every time they gave you the ball, it was like, it seemed like 5 or 10 yards.
Yeah,
like,
I think it was Hudson. It was freezing out. It
yes.
snowed a little bit that game. The field was, you could barely stand. It was not good. And then Hudson was coming off of a state championship that year, and I don't know what, something got in. It was so cold, like every hit hurt, but like I just would bounce off everywhere. Somehow I found a way, and it was a good game for me.
Heck yeah, I remember that. So I knew, I was like, okay, this kid's a tough kid. And now you're making a name for yourself in the kickboxing world. So like you're just an exciting dude with a lot of stuff to share. So I would say, if you're ready, like, let's ring the bell and get into it. Not literally, folks, not literally. I know better. I know way better. So why don't you just give the audience, like, for the people who might not know you, what does life look like right now for you?
Well, right now, I bought a house probably 2 years ago now here in Fairbank. Work at Myers Polaris here in Fairbank. And then my mom lives just outside of town, and usually a normal day for me looks like go to work until 5, and then either I'll be lifting right after that, or I'll go to Waterloo and train.
Yep.
That's, about every day for me. So.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good to me. Simple life, man. Simple life. One good hobby.
Yeah. I just got to keep myself busy. That's the main thing.
Right. Yeah. Sounds good. Simple life. Nothing wrong with that, man. It's a good hobby. So let's go back to the beginning then. You got one heck of a story. It took 6 hours to get through it, you and me. So
it's a lot to take in.
So let's just put that disclaimer out there. You're not going to hear every single thing, but when I tell people, I got this kid coming on, we've been working our way through this. We had a meeting. We are trying to find time to get together. And I was like, this episode, like your experiences, it's that rare situation where usually in a small town, what you hear going around town about certain people or whatever, usually what you hear is worse than the situation. It gets blown up. It gets all that stuff. But to be honest, your situation was that rare case where no, when you shared that stuff with me, I was like, this is, just as bad, if not worse than what I was aware was going on.
Yeah.
So if you guys hear this stuff and you think, man, I'm in a similar situation, or I know young people in a similar situation or something like that, and you need some more encouragement or something, I'm available. Reach out to me. I can get you in touch with Brock or whatever. We don't need him to give his phone number or anything like that. But if you need something more and he can build in or help out someone else, you're willing to do that,
yeah,
correct?
Absolutely.
So reach out to me. whatisuppodcast@gmail.com if you need more than what he's going to give today, and we'll get you hooked up with him, and we'll just go from there. So, all right, yeah. So just go back to the beginning, man. What was it like growing up? All that good stuff, and we'll try and roll through this thing and keep it under 6 hours.
So I was born in Waterloo, Iowa, August 30th, 2002. I am a twin with my sister Casey. I'm sure some of you know her. Then we moved, after we were born, I don't really remember obviously much because we were little, but we moved down to Iowa City for a while. My mom was in college. We were there for a few years. I don't remember a ton about being down there, but after we lived there for a while after my mom graduated, we moved up to Fairbank again. We lived with my grandparents for a while, and then after living there, we moved into what is now my mom's house in 2007, I believe. And then I lived there ever since, until I obviously bought a house. But that's where all the magic was, I guess, if that's what you want to call it.
And so you went to Wapsie High School. Your sister is a volleyball player at Upper Iowa?
She was. She just graduated from there, and now she's actually going to be going to Mankato here. We got to move her up here in the next few weeks, but she'll be going up there to play volleyball and then further her degree. I don't even remember what she's at now, but cool. God bless.
Yeah, I was just talking. We had, I can't remember how much older you are than Bridget. You're a couple years older, right?
I think I'm 2 years older.
Yeah, okay. So one of her friends came back for her wedding, and that was Kendall Hughes, whose brother,
yes.
Evan.
Evan was, he was my best friend growing up.
There we go. So we were talking about that a little bit, and I said, Brock's coming on the podcast. Make sure, Evan and everyone listens into it, and so we were talking about that a little bit, and she mentioned something about your sister, and so it's kind of like you guys are close enough in age, everyone knew, but Bridget did remember. She was over at Kendall's house one time, and she said you took something of hers. I don't know how old you guys were, obviously little, but you took some gaming device, like you and Evan were just being typical older brothers.
I don't even remember that.
Oh, I'm sure you don't. I'm sure you don't. But some little gaming device, and Bridget was like, yeah, and he took it, and then I was like, yeah, and it was all in fun. It wasn't.
Yeah, I don't even remember that.
But I was like, oh yeah, those worlds are connected there.
I could see it if I was. That was so long ago. We were so young.
Yep. Yeah, those are good memories. That's funny. She comes back for the wedding, and we end up talking about childhood stuff like that. That's crazy. So your sister's going to Mankato. She's going to keep going with volleyball and stuff like that. What did you do right after high school?
So right after high school, well, that was kind of when COVID, we got shut down. We couldn't do anything. I was kind of stuck in the house for maybe a week, and then I actually started working for a farmer. And then, I just worked there up until everything kind of opened back up, and then I started college, but everything was like, you had to wear a mask, and then, it was weird times. And then shortly after I started college is when I started working at Myers Polaris.
Okay. And did you say what you went to college for?
Automotive technology.
There we go. So he's a gearhead, folks. It's good. All right. So what was elementary life? What was like, those kind of years? What was it like going through Wapsie Valley School District?
Honestly, it was so long ago, but I had some. Well, this is when we first started. It was still the old elementary school where it was like 3 or 4 levels and everything was super old. But that building was awesome.
It needed to be torn down, but it was awesome.
It was. Yeah, but man, I don't remember. I wouldn't say I got in trouble a lot, but I did find my way in the principal's office quite a bit. Like, I can't even remember why. But
well, you can relate to probably half of my audience based on our demographics.
But I wouldn't say I was a troublemaker, but I just found myself in the office a lot. Yeah. Like, I remember one time I literally fell asleep in the office because I got in trouble for something. I don't remember what, but I just slept in the the principal's office all day. And that was in the old building.
Oh, wow.
But
all right.
I mean, other than that, I had a lot of good teachers. I mean, there was the few outliers that I didn't care for, but
sure.
Like Miss Bauska, she was awesome. Mrs. Hine, definitely one of my favorites. The Mr. Sinram, I don't know if he'll hear this or not, but dude, he was my guy. Like, if I did get in trouble, like, I don't know.
He understood?
Yeah, he was awesome. I wish I could. Yeah. I'd like to see him again, honestly. I have a lot of good memories from him. He kept me in the fight, I guess. Good.
Yeah, his wife, my doctor, just put me on blood pressure medicine. I said, I'm not that out of shape. I'm not that. And she says, it doesn't matter. You're 42. It doesn't matter if you can go run 2 miles. It doesn't matter if you can go bike 10 miles. It doesn't matter. Like, if it's still high, you just let's put you on a low dose. And I was like, oh, man.
Yeah, I just saw her a week ago, maybe, for my eye.
Oh, okay.
So
she's going to help you walk through that?
Yeah. Well, I guess now it's just let it heal, and then I think they're going to do another CT to see how it heals. But
all right. So we're going to leave that as a teaser right there for the audience. They're like, what is he talking about his eye for? Come on, put 2 and 2 together. Combat sports, messed up eyeball. We'll get to it. Don't worry. All right. Let's move into like the junior high age. You said you had a couple buddies that were kind of similar to you, kind of a rougher upbringing or whatever. But
yeah, I had a few. Basically, I mean, 2 of my closer friends, Brandon Cox and then Reese Welcher.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't say we grew up in similar situations. I wouldn't say they're necessarily the same, but I mean, not everything was always kosher. I'll say that.
Sure.
But yeah, we had a lot of fun growing up. We did a lot of dumb stuff. Even in junior high, I remember we were doing just the dumbest stuff I can think of sometimes.
Yeah.
But
you said at one point you and Brandon got into a fight at some point, and
this is well, honestly, when he first came, it was in 8th grade, I believe, and we were in math class. Like, this is like the first time I met him, and he turns around and flips me off. And I was like, this...
Because you're the new kid.
Yeah, I was like, you... So I said something to the teacher because I just didn't like the kid. And
wait, what grade are we in?
This was 8th grade.
Okay. Wow.
So, I mean, he was brand new. I had no idea who he was. He flipped me off, and I was like, dude, screw this kid. So I said something to the teacher, and then she started breaking down and crying. She's like, I am so sorry you had to deal with this. And like literally started crying, and I just go, I don't care. Just get him in trouble. I don't
need your sympathy.
Yeah, I was like, get him in trouble. And then I swear a week later we were best friends.
That's how it works when you're that age, dude.
It was dumb.
That is it. So I get that part of it. You get into a fight, then you become best friends. I totally get that. But the part I don't get is him being the new kid. Did he think it was like prison rules? Like, you got to come in, man. You got to establish yourself. You got to go knock out the biggest guy. It's like, no, that's not how it works. When you're the new kid, you keep a low profile. You try and be nice to everybody.
Well, he was always doing something to get a rise out of somebody, or just doing something. I mean, he did a lot of pretty fun. He was just trying to be funny, I think. I don't know. He did a lot of funny stuff. Now that I think about it,
yeah.
We all. I mean, kind of our whole grade was that way. They just. They did a lot of stuff.
Always up to stuff.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay. And so now here's the kind of the delicate part. We're going to talk a little bit about family life and things like that, and you can be as specific or vague as you want. You know what I mean? It's going to encourage people either way.
Yeah.
So just, as a younger person in this age, we're talking like junior high and earlier, like, what is it like? What do you remember? Because like we were talking, when you're young, you don't realize some of the stuff you're seeing might not be right.
Yeah.
Or especially coming from a parent or whatever, and that's tough to process that as a kid. So, share as much as you want, about that, and we'll kind of work our way through some of this stuff.
So yeah, that's the thing. Like growing up, like we grew up in a pretty violent household. Even as, it was like that about as far back as I can really remember. I know my sister can somewhat vouch. But yeah, it's hard to remember a lot of the memories.
Sure.
Because like I feel like when we're way back, it's just, you get older, you forget stuff. But I feel like part of your mind just tries to block it out because there was so much going on.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I think it wasn't quite as bad. Like the violence that we grew up with it happened, but it didn't get as bad as it did towards the end of it.
Okay.
Because I feel like once we got older, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and more common and more common and more common.
Yep.
But yeah, even in elementary, there was a lot of violence, but it wasn't an everyday thing like it grew to be.
Okay.
Or almost every day, I should say.
And what do you think? What was the main cause?
It was drugs.
Okay.
That's just, and I don't want to rag on my dad, he is my dad. We don't really talk anymore, but it's hard to put into words sometimes. Like,
sure.
He is my dad, and I don't want to make this sound like it's a hit piece on him, but it is just what happened. It's like, even though we don't talk, like I hope he gets his stuff figured out. But as of right now, we don't talk much, really at all. But
yeah, you made that clear to me. Like you were very clear about that. You want the best for him.
I want him to get better. And
but you said even in those moments there were still like glimpses of playing catch and
and it wasn't always bad. Like I don't want to make it sound like he never was normal, because like that's what kind of kept him around so long, is like you'd see the glimpse of normalcy, I guess, when he was being normal, and like when things were normal, they were good, but they just grew to become complete chaos. It was pretty rough.
Yeah, that's kind of when people are around people who are under the influence of something like that. It can be night and day. And until people have seen it, they don't understand you saying it. And they have to see it.
Well, like the look in his eyes, sometimes like I could tell, like he would just look insane. Like his eyes looked. I don't even know how to explain it unless you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can see it in someone's eyes when they're out of control.
Yep. No, I know exactly what you mean. So let's see here. You said it kind of did get worse as things went on. So we'll kind of move into the high school area.
Well, even in junior high, it would happen. Like there was always stuff going on. Because eventually I can't remember if it was freshman year or whenever me and Brandon got in that fight. We got into a real fight because he had said something about my parents, and it was like it was first hour in Mr. Sabota's class, I think, like math class.
Okay.
He said some stuff, and I'll go, "You wait, man. Once we step out of this room, it's game on." And Sabota heard, and I don't know if he thought that, I was just talking crap or whatever, but we walked out, and that was the only time I've ever hit first in any sort of fight, I'll say, like outside of a ring. I hit him a few times, and then I kneed him in the face a couple times, and he went down, and someone tried stepping in, but I was like, at that point I was already walking away. I was like, whatever. And then I just went to class, and Mr. McCowan came and pulled me from class, or he's like, "Beesecker, come here." And I was like, "For what?" He's like, "You did." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." So, I went there, kind of told him what happened, and he's like, "Well, I can't say I blame you, but we're gonna have to give you, like, I think I got a week out of school suspension for that." Wow. And then literally a week later, I stayed the night at his house literally a week later, and we were fine. Me and him we've had our back and forth about dumb but
yeah,
excuse my language, but we're still bro. I'd love seeing him. I haven't seen him. It's been a few weeks, maybe a month or so since I've seen him, but I got a lot of memories with him. I love the kid.
Yeah.
So
I like that. I like that stuff. That's real life stuff, man.
Yeah.
You kind of share with me that at different times, like your relationship with friends drifted or whatever because they were getting into that stuff.
Yeah.
And we talked about stereotypes that you kind of got branded a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because you were a tough kid or whatever, like
so
you were
that
a troublemaker.
That was something I never understood. Like I never drank in high school, never smoked. That wasn't me.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow I got like grouped into. Someone said something to me, like, "Oh, you definitely do drugs," and I'm like, "You're out of your mind." Like I've been like, and that's the thing, they didn't know that like I've been around, not through friends, but like just through other stuff like that I didn't necessarily want to be a part of. I knew that I didn't want to get into that, and even my dad, like with him having his addictions and his problems, he always told me like, don't ever get into it. I'll give him that. He never. I mean, that was part of it too. He's like, I would whip your if you ever got into this stuff, and I'm like, well, that. So like, he never like pushed it on me. I'll give him that.
Mm-hmm.
But it just never like I loved sports too much, and it was, it was too much of an escape for me to like. I never wanted to risk losing football or wrestling or whatever because of drinking, or it just never interested me in high school. Like, there were people that I knew doing it, but like even then I never got invited really to parties or whatever. And like at the time, I don't know if it bothered me. Like we were friends, but like some of the kids I just didn't hang out with like outside of school, other than like Brandon and Reese. But I mean, even then, sometimes like kids hit their vapes or whatever, and they'd offer it to me, and I'd be like, "Nah, I'm good." Like, it never really interested me.
Dude, I love hearing that kind of stuff.
I don't know.
It's highly unlikely when you grow up around certain things, you're going to partake in certain things. B, the other option is it pushes you further from those things. Like Jace Robertson, he's always adamant. He's like, I saw my dad as a fallen down, drunk, violent alcoholic. Yeah. I made a commitment. I'm never going to touch a sip. I just don't want it. Don't want to do anything. So,
and like even like marijuana is one thing, alcohol is one thing, but like the harder core stuff, like I could never get into it because like my thing is like I know how I am, and like I have an addictive personality. Like caffeine, love caffeine. So like some of that stuff, I know if I even tried it, it would be game over. So I have no interest in any of that stuff.
But I liked how you said too, even though they were getting into that stuff, you would be the one to go pick them up if they needed somebody to pick them up.
There's multiple times where I'm not going to name names, but I had to go get friends from it would be like, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, driving around in my buddy's car with him and his, rest of his family that I was also friends with. I remember me and another kid, we had to go somewhere the next day. I can't remember what it was, but we had to go pick him up, and he was just obliterated. It was rough, but we went and got him. We had to drive. They got to my house, or maybe we drove there and then drove back. We had to make like 2 trips to drop people off. It was like we had one kid completely passed out in the car. We had to carry him inside, and he was like 230. He was a big kid. I was like, what did this guy drink? Yeah. But we had to carry him like in the house, and then another kid, while we were carrying him, like dropped him, and then he like kind of hit his head on the stairs, woke up for a second, and then was like, oh, and then went back to sleep. We were like, oh my God.
Wow. Man. All right, let's just keep moving. I mean, I love that you were willing to do that. Even though it wasn't your scene,
my thing is like, no matter what, I don't want to see no one die over dumb. I mean, you hear about it all the time. It's not worth it.
Right. Okay. So I got so much stuff here that we can go over, but for the audience, like me and Brock have talked about, like what can we include, what do we not, what do we be specific, what do we be vague, because you guys don't want to hear every single detail. But you've got some stuff in here around this time that let's see. You told me like junior going into senior year, man, you were getting up early. I'll just let you tell it. You were talking about working for Hoth Grain Structures.
Yes.
And then lifting, and you had an encounter with Coach Foster, Tony Foster. And I love this whole thing.
He probably doesn't even remember this, but that summer I was working all the time. I quit baseball because I was just kind of upset with the coaching, how everything was handled. So I was like, you know what? I needed a car. So me and Brandon kind of hooked me up with the job because he had worked for Holt's, I think a few summers before that.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'll just work. We get up at I usually have to get up at 5 o'clock because we'd usually be at the job site, or not the job site. We would usually be at the shop at 6 o'clock. Sometimes earlier, depending on how hot it was going to be. But I'd get up at 5:30 usually, if not 5, and then we'd go to Sumner, be there by 6. Or no, I don't even think, I can't remember if I had a license or not now I think about it, because I would drive to Brandon's house and we would just carpool, and I'd give him $10 or whatever for gas.
Yeah.
But we'd work 12 and a half hour days, and me and him were on the inside of the grain bin, so it would get to be 120 degrees in there. It'd be so hot.
Yeah.
We had a great crew for the most part. There's some people I didn't get along with, but I was also, I don't know, I was a dumb kid too, so I'm sure I was annoying some days.
Oh, yeah. Senior year, man.
Oh, yeah, dude. So, or going into senior year, yeah. I think I was 16 when that happened, because I graduated 17. So, yeah, I'd have been 16, so I think I just got my license, but...
So what was it? You would work these 12-hour days.
So I would go in, work these 12-hour days, and then I'd come back, maybe grab a quick bite to eat, and then go out and lift after carrying all these sheets that got up to a couple 100 pounds.
Yeah.
So they're pretty heavy once you get towards the bottom of them. So I basically am doing more than probably most kids were, prior, and then. Right. I'd go lift for, hour and a half or whatever, And Mr. Foster came in there one day and said, what did he say? He said, he asked me why I wasn't at the morning lifts, and I kind of got it. I was like, I work, but, then I come in later and lift. He's like,
yeah.
He said, how he said it first was, why aren't you coming into morning lifts? Are you scared of how you stack up against everyone else? And I was like, that kind of lit a fire into my, because I was like, no, you should be worried how they stack up against me, because
yes,
mentality wise, I knew I've been through hell and back, even up until that point. I was never, even now, I've never been scared of anyone, big or smaller, it doesn't matter. My mentality compared to normal kids was just way different. I knew once you flip the switch, I'm going to win. Even a lot of the bigger kids, I definitely never was the biggest.
Right,
I put on a little more size going into my senior year. But, up until then, I definitely wasn't, the biggest or the strongest. But, I was putting up pretty good numbers compared to a lot of the kids.
Yeah.
Both bench and squat. But,
What did you weigh? Just to give people who
maybe
don't know you.
In high school, 170, 175.
Yeah. And that was a tough, scrappy 170.
Oh, yeah. I was,
dude, you were...
Dude, I was a maniac in high school. Looking back and just how I viewed things and processed everything, dude, I was a maniac.
Yep.
I internalized it, but there were times where, dude, some of the stuff, I was just off the rail sometimes.
Yeah. There were lots of times in the stands, people would just say, give it to the Beesecker kid.
Yeah.
Give it to the Beesecker kid. If you need, it doesn't matter if it's 4th and 12.
Yeah.
Give it to the Beesecker kid.
And that was the thing with football, too. It's I brought that, the same, there were kids that would, talk to the other team. I never have been about that. I don't.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I never talked crap. I never...
Dude,
I was just about playing. I wanted to hit you as hard as I possibly could.
Yeah.
I played like a maniac. I just wanted to hit kids as hard as I could. I wanted to run as hard as I could. I wanted to score. I wanted to do everything.
Yeah.
But we'll get into this later, but I just wanted to run the ball like Barry Sanders. Oh dude, I would always watch Barry Sanders highlights before games.
Sweet.
But
yeah. So, yeah, I was going through the followers the other day on Facebook. Carol Foster follows the Facebook page and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, they're going to like that. But you said that wasn't the end of that. Like, that lit a fire under you.
Yeah.
And I could see that. Your senior year, I was like, that is a tough kid. That is a kid who didn't just, go and lift and never do anything extra.
Yeah.
And usually kids who come from the rougher home situation are just tougher.
Well, that's where I got it. I think that's where I got it. Like, man, I've always had like this couple things. I've always had this like thing in my head that tells me like you're meant for more than just where you're at or what you're doing right now. Like,
nice.
I've had this like internal resilience. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I've been in some low places, like, but I can't give up, man. Like, I have this relentless drive no matter what, like this internal fire that just never shuts off. I don't know what it is. Like, even with fighting, like, I don't know, man. I love it too much.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but there's always something like I have to be just grinding away at something.
I hear you.
Anyway, going back to football.
How did that come full circle? Foster says, are you scared of how you stack up? You have a tremendous season.
Yeah, I had a really good season.
Foster comes around.
Yeah, so even earlier in the season, they had me out at they wanted to move me to a corner, and then they wanted to move me to like a slot receiver instead of what I was as a running back and a linebacker. And I'm like, I said something to Cody Jones. He's like, hey, I think we're gonna move you to corner, and I'm like, no, I'm not a corner. Like, I think I said something to him like, I guarantee you I will have the most tackles this season.
Mm-hmm.
And then they wanted to move me to slot, and I was like, no way. Well, then they moved me out to slot, but then I still was at linebacker, but man, I was making a lot of tackles and a lot of big plays, but the main thing was I had great hands, like I could catch a ball great, but I loved being a running back. Like, it just, I loved getting the ball and just smashing through people. And I don't know, I just like being a running back. Yeah, they still had me at slot, and it was after the Denver game. Like, I had a few pretty big receptions, but I mean, I wasn't happy that I wasn't getting the ball more. And I didn't like being a slot. So I said something after the Denver game of my senior year. And I was talking to Dwayne Foster. I was like, man, what do I got to do to get the ball more? Like, I'm like, I'm a running back. I don't want to be a slot. He probably don't even remember this, but I'm like, man, put me at running back or something. I can do slot. I'll do what you need me to do, but I'm the type of person. I'm the type of person that's like, if I want something or believe something, I'm gonna say it.
Sure.
Because like nowadays, I feel like you get like criticized for saying what you believe or just how you think or feel, and I'm like, no matter what, I'm gonna say what I want to say, and that's just, if you don't like it, then that's just how it is. But that's what I said to him even in high school. I was like, you gotta give me the ball. And then somehow I think they moved me, and then Trevor ended up getting hurt. And shout out to him, dude. What a phenomenal athlete Trevor is.
Yeah.
Like,
Sour Bride.
Well, we talked about the one time, just like, you don't want to be like me. Be like Trevor. Like, that kid is such a straight, like, I mean, he wasn't doing dumb. I mean, there were times where I was doing shenanigans in school. He never did. Like, he is such a good, the whole family is such a good group of people. But Trevor was definitely like my favorite out of the group of Sour Brides that like we grew up with. But he was just such a, in Brent too.
Yeah.
His dad, he was always super good to me. But Trevor's such an awesome athlete. Like, I mean, we don't talk a lot, but he's such a good kid, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to that. That was like, even in fighting too, this goes back to football, but one of my strengths was I'm so durable. Like, and that's kind of what got me back to running back a little more, is I think Trevor got hurt and he was kind of out for a few games, and I just went on a tear there at running back. Like, I'd break away. I had a lot of touchdowns, decent amount of yards.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't crazy or nothing, but
I had in my notes, when you finally got back there, you ran like you were mad at the grass.
Yeah. I was mad at something, man. I was mad in the head. Like, I always just wanted to either put the moves on you or just run right through you. Like,
yeah, you would do both.
Yeah.
You would do both.
Like, especially like that Hudson game, that it was so cold, it was freezing, and I just found a way I was the only one that scored that game because it was super windy, it was snowing and raining. the field, like you could barely stand. Like by the end of the game, I was completely covered in mud, and we barely lost. I think it was I think Hudson threw like a deep ball pass.
Yep.
And then Holton Robinson was covering it, and I think he was a freshman.
He
at the
was
time.
a freshman, yeah.
And he did everything right, except when he batted the ball, and he batted the ball up. So then when he batted the ball up, he fell, and then the Hudson kid caught it off the tip, and then scored, and that was the game. But
man, I just talked to him at the wedding too. And I remember thinking the way you guys rallied around him, though. If he wasn't a freshman, he was a sophomore, but I'm pretty sure he was a freshman.
I think he was a freshman, yeah.
Dude.
And that's the thing. It's like, dude,
you guys rallied around him.
Yeah, that's what always annoyed me. It's like, no matter if someone messed up, it's like, yeah, it happens, but I'm like, dude, he did everything right.
Yeah.
I mean, even like I remember Paul Runquist, I don't remember if he fumbled the ball or something my junior year, and it was like we could have won the game, but he fumbled the ball or something, and I went up to him after the game because he was crying, and I'm like, dude, don't put your head down. Like,
yep.
He was honestly such a phenomenal athlete. Like, he could put the moves on you. Like, he was such a good athlete he just kind of showed up and was such a good athlete. Obviously, in basketball too, he was super good. But like I remember, I just was like, dude, don't you have nothing to hang your head on.
Nope.
And then come my senior year, I almost had a similar situation. It was against Grundy, and that's when Brendan Brown stepped. Did Grundy win? Grundy ended up winning the state championship that year, but if we beat Grundy, we would have made it to the playoffs. And it was a close game. I had a really good game on defense. I think Trevor was the running back for the majority of it. But I don't remember if he got hurt or what. But I ended up getting my hand stepped on by Brendan Brown, and it actually broke my hand. And it was my left hand, but that's the ball, or that's the hand I usually carry the ball in. So they pulled me out of the game, and they like tested, they do that tone thing, and I was broke, so I'm like, just wrap it up. Like this could have been, if we win, we could go on, but if we lose, it would have been the last game of my high school career. So I'm like, just wrap it up, put me back in. And I played with a broken hand, and then we needed a score to win, and I don't remember if this was before me, because I got the ball and I ran the ball or something, and I had it in my non-dominant hand, and I got hit with a helmet to the ball or my arm or something, and ended up fumbling right before the goal line.
Yeah.
And we'll touch on this later, but I don't remember if Jordan actually scored either after that or before that, but one of the coaches had called timeout. So after we scored, they're like, no, that play doesn't count, so that like set us back, something like that. It was a weird circumstance, but that was Jordan Rubner. But I mean, even going back to the Holton thing, like I used to get at work about that play when I fumbled the ball, and like, dude, my dad, like when we would argue, he'd be like, oh, you fumbled the ball, like you're such a, like he would try and get my head about it, and just like, I mean, that was because he knew I cared, obviously, so he'd like try and hurt me and say like stuff to upset me or whatever. But even at work, like I caught some by Blake Lewandowski, shout out, but me and him are buddies, but he would give me about fumbling the ball, and I'm like, I go, you can't fumble the ball if you never get it. Yeah. So, like my point was like, and that's, I don't know if I'm kind of trying to use that as a metaphor, but like you can't mess up if you're not taking risks.
You gotta take
like,
a shot.
Yeah,
man.
That's what I mean. Like people who usually dog on you are people who don't ever actually do anything. They just, like it's easy to sit on the sidelines and be like, oh, this guy, man, this guy sucks. So it's like, well, then you get out there.
Well,
and do
what can you do?
That's what I mean. Like that's my thing about it. But
dude, I would take you with that. It looked like when they wrapped it looked like a club.
Yeah, it was.
It looked like a club. I would take you with one club hand over most kids any day of the week for sure.
Yeah, I had a couple sacks that game. I think Jordan might have had a pick too. I can't remember. It was so long ago now. But
jeez, dude, we could talk high school. We
could talk
Wapsie football forever.
For real.
I hope we got some good days coming up too, for sure.
I think we will.
But What was cool about that story is what stuck out to me was you said Foster was like, aren't you worried about how you're going to stack up, or are you coming in later because of that? And you won him over.
Yeah, so eventually I actually won, I think, all district linebacker or all conference. I can't remember if it was all district or all conference or what the accolade was. But I had the most tackles out of the entire team by over double, I think. And then I think in our conference I definitely had the most in our conference. It was either in our conference or district. I can't remember, but I was leading in tackles.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something I was like, yeah, like I kind of was like, oh, showed you.
Right. But he said something I got in my notes.
Well,
here.
I can't remember what
At some point, he said, I don't know what it was. You tore it up or whatever. And he says,
oh, Brock bites. That's what it was.
Brock has bite. That's it.
So that was actually in, when was that? That was Tony Foster.
We're still talking Tony.
I thought you were talking Dewey for a second, because I talked to Dewey afterwards too. But
no, Tony said, "Why aren't you coming to morning lifts?" And you said, "No, they should be worried about me."
So, we were doing. I don't remember what the drill's called. It's basically like you just basically get on the line and then you hit the other person and then you try and tackle them or whoever. But I don't think anybody beat me. Like we went across. Like you go head to head to someone, and then I don't remember after that what it was, but I just lit everybody up. Like I didn't care, and like there were some kids bigger than me. I was always meaner.
Yep.
I don't know what, and I don't even remember who I all went against, but I just remember like I didn't care. Like, and maybe that's just me. I was just kind of an, but like man, I never ever wanted anyone to be better than me because it drove me insane.
Right.
But
yeah. I like it. And not to steer away from some of the other stuff, but you said it like at this time you had a moment where your girlfriend was over or whatever.
Oh yeah. So so like the household violence stuff was like it was even actually it was bad my whole high school. Like that's when it really started picking up. So like my freshman year, like it was really bad. Like I wasn't even, for like a week or so I lived with a buddy because I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And then eventually, like obviously I went back home. I wouldn't say I lived with my buddy, but like I stayed the night there a few times before actually like going home because I didn't want to deal with it. But the violence at home was like, it was so bad. Like props to my mom. She is like, I always tell her this, but this is like, she's the person that I kind of like draw, not inspiration, but like she is the toughest human being I've ever met.
Sure.
Like I shouldn't joke about this, but we have a joke where I was like, I learned to take a punch from my mom. I shouldn't joke about that, but she's a good sport. Like,
inside the family,
just between kind of me and her.
Yes.
But, man, she is the toughest person I've ever met. Like, to deal with all that and then have to raise, me and my sister, and God knows I got into trouble like growing up. I mean, nothing crazy, I guess, depending on what you consider crazy, but man, I don't know, dude, she is so tough. But like anyway, freshman year was pretty bad. I mean, it just kept getting worse progressively each year until it was almost an everyday thing, and then my dad got removed. I believe my junior year, he got kicked out of the house. I don't remember if my mom got a restraining order or if it was DHS that removed him from the home. I think it was DHS, but like that was on our birthday. Like it was like there's always been something that's happened on our birthday. Like almost every year, it's like either he'll get a restraining order or something. Something always happens. It's just like it's just weird how that happens. But like the violence just got worse and worse and worse. And like then we didn't really know it when we were younger, but that's when we kind of found out he had a drug problem. And like it's harder when you're younger because you don't really understand what drugs are. And then like once we got older, that's when like we kind of understood. Like my sister didn't really know, but like me and my dad were like still close. Like we were still like getting along at this time. Like, but we just he would take me to these places that were not, I shouldn't have been around. Like, I mean, I was a junior and senior in high school going to these sketchy places, I'll say, with not good substances around.
Yep.
I'll just say that.
Yeah. No, I get it.
I mean,
that's not normal. That's
no,
just
it
not
was
normal.
like I was on edge all throughout high school, especially like junior, senior year. Like, my attendance was horrible. Like, you ask Mr. McCown, like, they can vouch. Like, I got in trouble for just leaving school and not showing up on time. But man, I couldn't sleep a lot. Like, I'd be up super late just thinking about all this other stuff going on in the background that even my mom didn't know about. It was just me and my dad, and he's my dad, so it's like I didn't really know what to say to him.
Right.
And like, we were still on like good terms then, even though all this stuff was going on. Like I still like was like, man, maybe he'll turn around.
Yep. Yep.
And then eventually it was like, it got to the point where like something had to be done, because like even the school, like, I think because my sister said something to some, and like me and my sister didn't get along at this time, because like I didn't want to get any of that stuff involved, like, because it's just another headache to deal with. But I think my sister said something to someone who was probably a mandatory reporter,
right?
And she was doing the right thing. Like, I mean, that's just how it is. But somehow DHS got involved. We had to deal with them, and like, it was from then on, it was just a headache. Like, we had to always meet with them, and like I never wanted to meet with them, and
right.
Like, we'd always get pulled into the office, like and then they would announce our names on like the intercom, like, Brock Casey to the principal's office, and it was just like, or to the office or whatever, and it's like, so then people started asking questions, and I think people kind of knew stuff was going on, but I just don't think they knew the severity of how bad it really was. Like,
right.
I think, people know people's parents fight. That's not uncommon, but like, this was a whole different it wasn't just fighting, it was violence. Like,
yep.
I mean, you heard what I was telling you earlier. It was horrible stuff, like stuff that's going to stick with me and my sister. And even I've talked to my sister about, some of the stuff that goes on, and she says a lot of that, like, she can't remember a lot of big chunks of her childhood because her brain just tried to erase it.
Yep. That's common.
I mean, yeah, it was a rough upbringing. There was, like, and like I said, I don't want to make this sound like I'm a hit piece on my dad, but this is just what happened. I mean, like, he would beat up my mom, and it's like, people didn't know how bad it really got. Like, we had so many nights of just screaming and stuff getting broken, and my mom getting hurt, and nobody. I mean, I don't know. I feel bad for her, because she really, I don't know who she really could turn to, because she was in such a tough spot where it's like, my dad can say what he wants about or he can say what he wants to about my mom, about he didn't think that my mom loved him and whatever, but my mom did truly love him. Like, she stuck by him, hoping he'd change, and the drugs just get a hold of you, man. And I mean, part of it bothers me, because it's like he chose the drugs over his family and like what could have been, and like it truly I mean, I wouldn't say it ruined my life, but it definitely left a scar, a deep wound in me.
Sure.
Maybe that's why I am the way I am. Because, like, I wouldn't say I'm grateful for it, but I know, like, if I grew up like the rest of these kids where everything's good at home, no problems, like, no adversity, I wouldn't be as tough a human as I am. Like, I'm so resilient.
Right, yeah.
And, like, even my mom, like, I mean, there were times like she had black eyes and like busted lip, and like, I mean, as bad as it can get, that's how it got. Like, I don't want to get too into detail and gruesome, because I don't know how they're going to feel about this, but I mean, she went through hell.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, we can.
We all did, but man, my mom definitely had the worst of it. I mean, I got thumped a few times, but that's when I was younger, and I mean, I don't remember I remember one time I had said something to a substitute teacher that my dad knew. I don't remember what it was. I don't even remember who the guy was, but my dad was mad that I said something to him, and like, disowned. He's like, "You're not my son," and like, was just screaming at me, like, just horrible stuff. And like, people didn't know like that was going on. Like, this, like, I was in elementary. Like, "You're not my effing son."
Yes.
Like, you're worthless. Like, and it was such a weird, like, looking back, it's insane that I even, like, still wanted to, like, not impress him, but, like, he's your dad's supposed to be your superhero.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, looking back, it's so, like, it makes me mad because, like, as a kid, you don't really know, like, you don't know how to interpret things. Like, you don't understand what's actually going on to a full degree, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, looking back, like, it was so messed up. Like, I can't believe it went on that long.
Right. I remember asking you, I said, okay, where were the, because like I said earlier, everyone else, if it's what you heard around town, it was actually worse than that. Where were the guys in your life? Where was somebody saying, hey, is everything good at home? Where was somebody? Because I know some of the guys involved in sports and coaching now and all this stuff, and I can't imagine that at the hint of something being really bad at home, there wouldn't have been somebody to say, dude, are you okay? Are things good at home? And you talked glowingly about Bo Sorensen.
Yeah, Bo Sorensen, dude. God bless him, dude. This would have been my senior year of wrestling, and I mean, he is my rock, dude. Like, then, like, I needed somebody then, like, I was going through a lot, and he just became like, I've even seen him after my fights and stuff, and I'm like, dude, we've talked even before, because now he's like not a doctor, but he like looked at my arm. He works in the medical field somewhere, but like, I told him, I'm like, dude, I wish I could put into words what you did to me, or not did to me, but did for me.
Yeah.
Because, man, I had a lot going on around that time, and, like, I needed somebody like I had never needed anyone before, and he was that guy, dude. I mean, I don't really think he understood, even now, I don't think he fully grasps what him being there did for me, because I didn't have anyone. Like, me and my dad were kind of, I wouldn't say on the outs, but it was rocky waters, I'll say that. And I was just fed up with how my mom was getting treated. I mean, she was getting beat up almost every day. I mean, all the drug stuff that was going on was insanity. I mean, it was just, there was a lot going on, and I was in, like, mental, and no one knew. I didn't say anything, like,
right.
But me and him talked about some of the stuff going on, and he actually, like, stepped in. My dad was saying something after a wrestling match or yelling, and Bo said, you need to just let him be for a bit. And, yeah, I mean,
nice.
Man, I wish I could put into words what he did. It's hard to say, man. It's hard to put into words what he means to me, and, like, we still talk quite a bit, actually. But
good.
But going back to, like, the school system, because I remember you said, do you blame the school system? Or maybe not blame. I can't remember how you phrased it, but, like, on their end, it's hard to say for them what was actually going on. Like, they couldn't really know, like, because we tried to hide it, I guess. Like, we didn't want it out there,
right?
Because it's a sensitive thing, you know. Like, and, like, that's the thing. I lied. Like, they had asked me, "Is everything good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine." Why?
Yeah.
Like, and that was just me trying to put on a front, because it's like I just didn't want to deal with it. Like, I already had all that other stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, you know, the DHS got involved, and they removed him, and, like, there was a long time where I didn't see my dad, and then we about got sent away to foster care, because, like, there was just so much going on, and like, my dad was just tweaked out about, I wouldn't say, I don't know about tweaked out, but, like, I mean, he would just say some evil stuff, man. Like, he would threaten to, like, if you don't do this, I'm going to make sure you guys get sent to foster care, and you'll never see anyone again, and stuff like that. And, like that's, people didn't know that was going on. So, like, I'd go to school and just try and, like, you know, I remember one morning, I was late to school one day, and I don't remember if my dad was beating up my mom or what was going on, but that, and then he'd bust the front door out, like, blow the storm door glass out, and then you have to go to school and just act like nothing happened. And it's like, people didn't know what was going on. So, like, part of that, I think, is the reason why, like, I wouldn't necessarily say I acted out, but, like, I just didn't care, like, whatever, because school was like I got bigger problems than, you know,
yeah,
I got to get a good grade on whatever. And, like, and I wasn't a terrible student, but I could have done better in some areas. I'll say that.
Oh, I get it.
But like as far as the school goes, like man, I don't blame them. Like I don't blame them at all. Like they could have never guessed how bad it really was because a lot of it I tried to hide and it's like, and my sister actually was the one who really like must have talked to somebody because I just didn't want to deal with everything else because I was just trying to do it internally. But
well, and then once you put it out there, like I think that's one big thing too is once you put it out there, if you guys were to ever tell somebody, hey, we need some help.
Yeah, well, and
you're airing your brokenness.
Yeah,
and then there's no putting it back together.
Well, that's what I mean.
You said you kept wanting, you kept seeing glimpses of your dad. You kept thinking, hey,
well, and that's the thing. It's like I'd reached out for help from my family members, like even before like it got like before like people could have died. Like there was a point where like if it had gone on any longer, someone would have ended up dead.
Yep.
Like I remember I reached out to a family member. I'm not going to say who it was, but I asked for help, and I said it was getting bad, and this was even before high school, I think. And I'm like, we need help. Like, we got to do something. Something's going on. And they're like, oh, that's just how your dad is. He's like that since he was a kid. And I'm like, no, that's not normal. Like,
yes.
Like, I just think a lot of the times, like, he was a perfect storm to be a problem. Like, I had heard stories when he was younger that he had been an asshole and whatever else. And then I think just the drugs really amplified that.
Yeah.
And like, and not to rag on my dad completely, like, I do think I do have some good traits from him. Like, I think he can be very funny and like very charismatic, but part of me thinks like he is what do you call it? I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of. Not a kind of a psychopath, but he's just very manipulative, I guess. Like he'll kind of try and charm you or like.
Okay.
I mean, he can be very, like, he is very charismatic when he needs to be. That's why I don't think people, like, realized that something was actually super wrong. Because when he would be out and about, like, he would try to be normal. But, like I said, he can switch from being one guy to another guy.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
But, man, behind closed doors, it got pretty rough. I mean.
Yeah. So I got a lot of stuff in here that we talked about that we're not gonna air this stuff out. Everyone can understand it was bad. It was worse than what we heard.
Yeah, and that's what I always wondered too. Like, I mean, I don't even know what people have heard. Like, because I just wanted to clear the air about some of it. Because it's like, at the end of the day, I know like some people like they would just rather like like act like it never happened, but it's like it did happen, and it had a very profound effect on. Not just like me and my sister and my mom, but like the rest of my family. Like they had to watch my uncles had to watch their sister go through hell, and even my dad, like the drug problem. Like I know the guy that got him into drugs, and I saw him at work one day, and he pulled up in a brand new high country, and he's gotten his life straightened out since. But
good.
I saw him in a new high country Chevy pickup. And then he was buying a brand new like Ranger or something, and I just looked at him, and he gave me this look like I don't know what to say to you. And I think, and maybe
like he knows what he did, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like he took a piece of my childhood, my life, my mom's husband, me and my sister's father away from us because, he decided to get my dad hooked on the stuff, and I think about that sometimes where it's like, man, I wish you knew what you did.
Yeah.
And I see him, he's got he's doing pretty well considering.
Sure.
But
yeah,
I don't know, like I said, like the violence got, the stuff, like not even just the violence, but the psychological stuff he would do. But it's just like, people don't understand how bad it really was.
So here's I'll let you clear the air if you want to, and if we edit this out later, that's totally fine. If you want to know what some people were saying around town or whatever,
I would like to know.
So this is what I heard at the lunch table at work one day was about, the one big incident or whatever. And basically, the end of the story was Brock beat the living out of his dad. That was the end of the story. The details on it were a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of thought maybe this is what happened. But if you wanna talk about that, you can clear that out.
I remember it was on this. So this was kind of a long time coming. Like I knew someday, eventually, I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to put him down. Like, and I had been lifting. Like this is when I was just in my lifting stage. Like this is kind of after high school. I would lift every day. People that were in the weight room at the high school, they knew how big I was. Like
right.
I was as
and this
big
is all
as,
pre-kickboxing.
This was all before I was even fighting. Like
Yeah.
I had no actual training or, other than like wrestling, but that's obviously different.
Yeah.
So I was just lifting at the time. And man, was I was so strong, man. Like I was bench pressing like mid 300s. I was super strong. My form was probably not the greatest, but we pushed on. But
sure.
I was huge. Like whoever you ask, they're like, this guy's like, there were rumors I was on steroids, and I'm like, no, dude, like I'm not. That always, like, it's kind of flattering because I'm like, dude, they think I'm on whatever. I'm like, no, but I was just so like I was very dedicated. That was like kind of my therapy, I guess.
Sure.
So I was always in there. Like I ate a lot of food, and I just did creatine and lifted heavy as much as I could. So I just, I knew things were going to come to a head eventually. I just didn't really know when. Well, this is when me and my dad really, because I was just like, dude, you need to stop. Like we obviously told him, like, but like, this is when, like, I really started, like, we started really, really butting heads. We had gotten into a few fights before the major incident. He blew the transmission out of one of our vehicles. And at the time, I had just bought another car. I had a 05 STI. So my other WRX was, I was like, you can drive that. So he was driving it for quite a while. Then he ended up crashing it. And I was just like, what, like, I don't know if he was on his phone or what, but he ended up crashing it out by Rusty Canes.
Okay.
Tore it up pretty bad, blew the shocks out of it, and then I think he messed up the wheels and something else. Ended up getting it fixed or whatever. I had to put new suspension all the way around, which I'll give him credit. When I first got the car, I had to put new shocks on it, but I was still in high school. I think we bought like some cheap eBay, like $200 coilover. I mean, they worked, but he bought those for me. That's when we were still on good terms. But this was like after, so I ended up having to put new shocks and stuff on. But after he crashed it, like he messed up like my bumper and then like ripped out one of the fog lights. So I had to replace some stuff. Well, I had some of his tools, and I crawled under there, and he was all mad I was using his tools to fix my car that he broke. And he jumped on top of me and like we just started wrestling, and I'm like, you need to get off. Like while I was like under the car. And I don't remember if we were swinging or what was going on, but I'm like, I think I got around to him, and I was going to, like, I had him, like, kind of pinned down on the ground. I'm like, you need to stop right now. Like, this is, like, I'm fixing my car that you broke. He's like, whatever. And then I let him up, and then he started coming at me again, and then, like, we were just screaming and hollering, and I was so angry. This is, like, one of the most angry I've ever been. I picked him up, and, like, literally I picked him up, like, and just slammed him on the ground, like, in our yard while we were screaming at each other. And slammed him, and I was just gonna, like, I'd never been this angry. Like, I was just gonna start hitting him, but, like, I knew if I started, like, it would have been bad. Like, I would have went to jail,
right.
And I was just like, I'm done, dude. I can't do this anymore. He's like, yeah, you leave my effing house. And I'm like, yeah, the house that you don't even pay for. Like, because, like, at this time, like, he wasn't paying any bills. I don't even know if he had a job at this time, honestly. Throughout most of my high school, he was either, I know he got fired, but I don't remember if, because he had to go to jail there for a little bit, then he lost his job, but I don't remember. I mean, he did not have steady employment, to say the least. I'll say that. I was just going to start hitting him, and I'm like, I'm done. He's like, yeah, leave my house. I'm like, you don't even pay for this house. Like, my mom supported us financially, like 100%. So I was just, like, bickering back and forth after that, and then I got all my stuff. I moved out and moved in with my girlfriend, with her and her mom at the time, and I don't remember how long I was living there, but it wasn't maybe for a week or so, because I'm like, I can't deal with this. And then shortly after, I think my mom got a restraining order we had got into some scuffles kind of before that, but nothing. I mean, like where no one like, I don't know. It wasn't like what happened at the end of the story, but
Right.
I moved back home, and then I was there for a while, and then me and my dad were just not like we were just bickering back and forth. Like I was just done with his shit. And he was living with my grandpa at the time, and he was texting me, and my mom was gone, and I don't remember what. He's like, oh, he was texting me, and he was all mad about something, and
started provoking you.
Yeah, he started. Yeah, that's the thing. Like I don't
get
wanted,
that.
Yeah, he wanted me to come over to where my grandpa was living at the time, and I'm like, I texted him back or something. I'm like, I'm not gonna drive over there, whip your ass, and then have you go to jail or me. Like it's not worth my time.
Right.
Like I'm sure I was like I was so done with his shit at the time. So I'm like, dude, you're an idiot. Go. Like he was very delusional on what like reality really was. So I was like, I'm not gonna deal with you. He's like, fine, I'll come to Fairbank, and he's like, call me a. You know, I'm like, whatever. Like, So I was like, I got a notification because he was driving my mom's truck at the time. Like he didn't even have a vehicle.
Oh, right. Yeah.
My mom bought a truck. It was a 22, or maybe it was a 21 Silverado, like a super nice truck. Well, it had tracking, so like anytime it got close to Fairbank, it would go off, and I got a notification that it's arrived in Fairbank. I'm like, you have to be kidding me. Like, I'm not dealing with this. So I started packing my stuff up. I was like, I'm just gonna go to my girlfriend's at the time, or go to my girlfriend's, and we'll get into some of that stuff later. But I was gonna go to my girlfriend's. I'm like, this isn't worth it. Like, I'm just not gonna deal with it. It's dumb. Well, right as I go to pull out of our drive, he drives by and calls me. He's like, why don't you come meet me down the road? And I'm like, all right, but this is what you want. Remember that. And I followed him down the road, and we parked just down the road from the Kleitches, because I think they actually ended up calling Cody Jones, who was a state trooper at the time, I think. He parked, and then I parked, and he came out sprinting at me, shoved me, and then we just started like arguing and screaming at each other, and then we just kind of got into a shoving match, and then kind of started swinging on each other. And then he ended up kicking me. He had steel-toed boots on. He ended up kicking me in the shin, and my left shin, like 3 times, as hard as he could. And that's when I like really started getting worried, because like I thought he broke my leg. Like I could barely walk on it. It hurt so bad. But I had so much adrenaline. Like I knew something was gonna have to happen. Well, then I think he like came at me, and like I picked him up and like slammed him, and he smacked his head on the ground, and he's like, I could tell it dazed him, because like we're on a gravel road. He smacked his head pretty hard, and obviously he was not in his right mind.
Mm-hmm.
He kept coming at me, and like eventually I just ran out of room, and I'm like, it just kind of kicked in. I threw one, like I kind of had my back against my car, and I hit him. It was starting to get dark at this point. I hit him in the eye, I think. And like he went out unconscious like immediately, and he kind of fell against my wheel. And then I hit him 2 more times, because I was like, it just instinct. Like I wasn't thinking. I was just like, I have to make sure like he's down for the count, because he just tried to stab me. Like he was swinging and swiping at me. Like I truly, like the look in his eye, I thought, I'm gonna die tonight.
Yeah.
It was I had so much adrenaline. So after I knocked him out, he fell against my car. I hit him 2 more times. I think on one of the 2 punches, I hit him in the tooth and ended up splitting my hand open and breaking my right hand, because it like split. I'm assuming on his tooth to the knuckle, and I was bleeding everywhere. I didn't realize it at the time, but he was unconscious for like almost 10 minutes. Like I was like, and I had so much adrenaline, I about threw up. I mean, it was insane, but he didn't wake up, and I'm like, well, I got to get out of here. So I drug him off the road, like off to the side, so, I don't know if he's, whatever time he's going to wake up, but I was like, I just got to get out of here. Peeled out. Then I called my mom, and I told her what happened. And she's like, well, do you want to call the cops? And I'm like, yeah, probably should. And that's when I was like, we got to call the cops. I don't remember. I think she called the cops, and then I didn't want to go back home, so I ended up going to someone I knew in town, and I'm like, I walked in covered in blood, my own blood, because I split my hand open. And I was like, guys, I gotta just hang here for a little bit. I was like, you gotta sink so I could like wipe off. Told them what happened, and they were just like freaking out. And then once kind of the coast was clear, I guess, because they were basically chasing my dad down. He fled all the way to Manchester. Like I think the state troopers were involved, the local Fairbank police, Buchanan County was involved, Fayette County was involved. And then I think the Delaware County police was involved too.
Holy cow.
I mean, well, he basically fled. I mean, all the way from Fairbank to Manchester. I think he hid somewhere, and then someone came and picked him up. So he was gone. I mean, we basically didn't know where he was. Like he was kind of out for a couple of days. Like we didn't know where he was,
right.
So we were like kind of on edge. Like, dang, he's kind of. Then I don't remember if there was a warrant out for his arrest. I believe there was. I went to class the next day, and I told my instructor, this is into my second year of college, I told my instructor what happened, and he's just like, yeah, like I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to wrench on stuff, because with my hand being as jacked up as it looked like a balloon, dude. It was pretty swollen.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you're going to have to bear with me a little bit, and he's like, yeah, well, while we were in class, we usually listen to the radio, like in our classroom setting, and we were taking a test, and over the radio it said my dad's name. I'm not going to put his name out there,
sure.
But and then it said there was like a warrant out for his arrest or something as of whenever. And me and it said it over the radio while it was dead silent, so everyone heard it. But luckily, no one. The only people that actually caught it were me and my instructor. And I was like, oh, like we were like,
yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
We've even talked since. We're not supposed to. I was out on the road running, and he's like, no, you assaulted me. I'm like, no, that's not at all what happened. He's still the same dude. Like, he's very delirious on what actually went on.
Right,
Because
right.
I mean, there was just so much.
Yeah, any of us who've ever dealt with people that have been under the influence, we understand that they live in a detached reality, and that just
and that's
there's
kind of
almost
what
no talking to them at some point.
Yeah, literally, it's. I mean, you might as well talk to a brick wall, because like there was no common sense in anything he was saying.
Right,
like,
right. The blame game and all that stuff you
yeah.
shared. Like, no, you guys didn't ask for this.
Well,
you
that's
didn't
what I
bring
mean.
this
I'm like, did we deserve what? Like, he's like he was trying to play the victim and everything that all went down. I'm like, dude, we were kids.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't. Everything that happened wasn't our fault. No matter what you say, or like, this wasn't our fault.
Right. Right.
And going back to that, it was like he never really like understood reality. What actually happened. I mean, even our incident, I know for a fact he doesn't remember, because I'm like, dude, I've been around people who've gotten knocked out. They don't remember anything up until, I mean, he might have remembered pulling up.
Minutes before.
Yeah, I mean,
you lose that.
Yeah, I mean, and I told him, like, you got knocked out. You were unconscious for 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's a deep sleep.
That's what I mean. I'm like, dude, you don't remember a thing. Like, I remember, like, looking at him like, dude, he was gone. And so I was like, I know you don't remember anything that happened. And I'm like, you can say I assaulted you or whatever. You pulled a knife on me, dude. Like,
yeah.
It's...
Well, and I think that clears the air, at least for that incident. And you didn't have to do that. I'm not doing this for clicks.
No.
I think you and me both, we're going to, even to get to this point, we're going to prayerfully consider how much we, edit, and how much was just between you and me that one night and all that stuff.
Well, and that's what I'm, like, people really don't understand how bad it got. Like, and that's the thing, we kind of hid it from the public. Like, and that's the thing, people that don't know, like, it's just hard. Like, it's really hard for them to understand, like, what we went through, like,
right.
The amount of violence that happened almost on a daily occurrence. Like,
right.
It was horrible stuff, man. And just my mom, like, she went through hell. She got as bad as it could be, and that's literally how bad it got. I mean,
that's good. That's
that's
good for
what
the
I mean.
audience to know.
I'm open. Like, the one thing is, it's like on the internet, it's one thing, but like if you want to talk, I'll talk to people in person. Like I said, I don't know how some of my family's gonna feel about it, but this is the reality. Like, some of my family on my dad's side are like, oh man, I just couldn't see your dad doing that, and I'm like, well, it happened. We wouldn't just make it up. Like,
right.
We went through hell, man. Like all of us, my mom, my sister, me, the rest of my extended family, like they had to watch all this happen, and it's like, eventually, I knew I was gonna have to put him down, and the day came.
Right. Well, let's look at it like this. We're closing in on an hour and a half, and we're just gonna throw the analytics out of the window. This is your story. This is your life. I wanted to get into your kickboxing stuff. I think we're gonna pull that over to to part 2, but I want to end on the high note. Hearing all that stuff, whatever we decide to release is what's out there, and I'm sure it's going to be enough to paint a picture for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, if someone wants to talk to me in person, I'm an open book. It's one thing to put it out on the internet, just because like you never know who it's going to reach.
Right.
But in person, I'm pretty much an open book on what's happened.
Oh, I like that. I much rather have face-to-face or even just
that's
over
what
the
I mean.
phone. People don't use our phones to actually have phone calls anymore,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's good to have that face-to-face interaction. So let's leave on the high note. What's it like now? You shared with me, okay, that obviously you're doing okay. Casey's in college. Mom is obviously moving on. Like, there are some good things. Let's leave there.
So,
what does it look like now for everybody?
Right now, I mean, things are definitely better than back in the day, for sure. Fighting's going pretty good. Just had a win here a few months ago now, but it's, I don't know. I think I finally kind of found something that I know I can thrive at and just look forward to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. And like, I'm human, man. I got bad days too, but
sure.
At the end of the day, man, you just got to keep pushing. Like, you can't just sit around and sulk in your own sorrow about how bad your life is, because nothing good ever comes of just sitting around and sulking. I mean, even, I don't know, like, I think about, how bad I could have. I mean, I could have went the exact opposite way and really got involved in the drug side of things and just, that bad life. Like, it's, I mean, obviously, like, my story's still being written, but I just look back at, like, how bad things were and, like, how far things have come. Obviously, things aren't always good, but it's like I said, things are good now. Like, obviously, like, family-wise, it is nice. Like, I get to be around my family more without, like, all this extra drama and, like, having to deal with that. And, like, I feel like we are definitely closer because of all this.
Sure.
Stuff's going to happen. That's life. That's the beauty of life. Like, you look at all these stories, it's like you got to have something to overcome. I mean, that's just part of my story. It's not, obviously it's not great, but, it made me who I am.
Right.
Like, I'm not happy about it, but I'm proud of who I am and who I've become kind of because of it.
Yeah. You're not the norm, dude.
No,
You're
that's what I
not the
mean.
norm.
Like,
it should have tore you down.
Oh, yeah.
Should've...
I mean, it took a lot. I mean, I look at me and Casey, and I've said this to people. It's like, it's a miracle we're as normal as we are, just considering.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
Considering what happened, we are thriving. I mean, we're all doing really good. Casey's going to another college. My mom's doing really good now. I'm doing really good.
Nice.
Got a kind of cool car. It's okay.
Yeah, he's got a car I would love to have. It must be pretty cool.
It's a Subaru, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good, because that and it's I was honest. It's not happily ever after.
No,
it's a struggle.
It's not
a
a fairy tale, but it's.
But you guys are all doing remarkably better than what could have been, and what
yes.
normally is. If you play the stereotypical,
you
thing.
can't. Well, that was my thing. Like, you got to break the cycle. You can't
Yes.
repeat.
Yes.
I know. There's people I know that, their parents drink all the time, and then they'll just kind of fall back into that, or they don't make the right decisions, and it's like, if you want more for your life, you gotta get out of that. Like, and that's something I recognized pretty early on. I'm like, dude, I knew I was meant for more, so I had to go out and get more. Like, you can't just sit around waiting for things to happen or get better. Like, you actually have to do something. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I like that. I felt like I was meant for more. You can't wait for it.
I've felt like that, dude, since I was in elementary school. Like, and maybe that was like because of all the stuff that was going on, but like, I've always just had this bigger dream of like, I know I can do anything. Like, I know I have the grit from everything I've gone through. Like, you'll have, like, Blade Bella said this one time. He's like, Brock's the kind of guy, if you're going to truly stop him, you're going to have to kill him.
Yeah.
And I do agree with that. Like, even when with my eye, like, I broke my orbital in sparring with another gym, got knee in the eye, shattered my orbital floor into, like, 4 or 5 pieces. And I did 7 rounds, I think, with it broken.
That's crazy, dude. I
mean, even in some of my fights, like, I'm not perfect. But I mean, I've lost fights, and that's the fight game. That's life. You're not going to win everything in life,
right.
But I'll never quit, man. I will give you everything I have. Like, I mean, like I said, you're either going to have to put me out or kill me, because I have a drive unlike anything I can, like, describe. Like, I know whatever I want to do, I could do it. And that's the thing I try to preach to people, I guess, if you want to call it. Like,
sure, yeah.
Like, no matter what your situation is, you can always do something about it. Like, you got to have a goal. You got to have something to chip away at. Otherwise, it's just like you're kind of wasting time.
Yeah. And you will become a product of your
that's what I
environment
mean,
then.
yeah.
No, I get it. It's a good message, dude. That's why I reached out to you. The message you shared with those boys. I was like,
well, I was very Justin Davey reached. I don't remember. He reached out to me and texted me and asked, because we were talking about, like, high school. Because when we were in high school, our group, we had some talented guys. We had a lot of pretty good guys, but some of the guys, they just weren't as, like, committed, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they definitely messed around a lot. Not to say I didn't, but, like, when it came to sports, like, I always gave 100% no matter what, because that was my escape. Like, and I think that's kind of part of the reason I still fight, because, like, man, I gotta have something. Like, if I'm not fighting with something, I'll just fight with myself, and I'll become self-destructive, man. Like, I gotta find something to be grinding towards, or to be all in at.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you kind of lose your purpose on what you're trying to do with yourself, and, you know, that's when all the bad thoughts creep in, and you know, that's why people kind of, I think, are the way they are right now.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, athletes get that way.
Oh yeah,
we were
for
talking
sure.
about Dustin Poirier. Like, they got to get to a point where they know, okay, that's behind him. What's next? I got to have something.
Well, like, even like Volkanovski, like, he was talking about, I think he took a loss, and he just needed. I don't remember if he took a loss or what, but he was struggling with his mental health, and he's like, man, I gotta get in the fight. I gotta do something.
Yep.
That's a lot of the things that people don't, like, really talk about, especially, like, on the fighting aspect. It's like, dude, fighting is such a rush of emotions. Like, I mean, you have so much adrenaline, and you know, some dudes you have animosity towards, some you don't. So I mean, there's nothing more, like, primitive really than, like, fighting another human, because that's, I mean, it is the most adrenaline you can get, I feel like.
Oh, I'd agree.
Yeah, it's a crazy feeling, but.
If you guys want to hear more about that, you're going to have to tune into part 2, because that's where we're going to pick it up. Is we're going to get into this hobby, if you call it a hobby, I guess, that Brock got into, that he'd obviously excel at, and is basically like the best therapy he could ask for. It's an outlet for him and all that stuff. We're going to get into that at the start of part 2, but at the end of part 1 here, man, I got to thank you again for coming on and sharing with everyone. I'm sure, you know, not so much me, but you on this episode encouraged a lot of people with your story, your ability to make it through, you know, some of the darkest situations I've ever heard of. And I know a lot of people, I listen to a lot of people's stories, and your story isn't over yet. Like you said, it's not a closed book, man. But after this episode, I promise you're going to have more people in your corner. I text you that right away. I said, I'm in your corner now. Yeah. So this isn't just something we're doing for the internet or so I can hit it big, or no. This is real life.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, I'm an open book. Like, it's one thing to put it out on the internet, but if you guys are struggling or something, or just want to talk to me personally about it, I'm an open book. Like, I'll spare no, what do you say, detail, I guess. Because like I said, it's pretty graphic to put out on the internet.
Yeah. My notes are 13 pages. You looked at
like, some of the stuff
said,
you wouldn't even believe is real. Like, it's absolute insanity.
Right. And that's my next line to the audience. If you're going through something like this, or you know someone who's going through this or whatever, and you need help with that, share this episode with them. Reach out to me, reach out to Brock. He's more than willing to help, talk through some of this stuff and how he's handled the emotions of it all and the trauma. That's all. Life is just full of trauma. It's how you deal with it. Yeah. And Brock knows how to deal with it, or else he wouldn't be sitting here today. That's how you encourage people. So share it with them. Let them know they're not alone. If Brock had people coming alongside him, that would have made a tremendous difference, that maybe there's a better way to handle it instead of just stuffing it in and whatever. Let's let these people know they're not alone. So whether it's anything, it could be similar to what he shared. It could just be, abusive parents, drug, alcohol abuse, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Let's just try and encourage each other and reach out when we know they need help. If you want to reach out, like I said, you can reach out to me at whatisuppodcast@gmail.com. I'll get you in touch with Brock if you want to talk to him personally. You know what direction I'm going to point you. It's going to be up. If you want someone to walk by you and with you through the darkest times, God actually promises in his word to do that for us if we have a relationship with Jesus. That's it. He says, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. He ain't going to prevent all the bad stuff from happening, but he's going to be right there with you. So I want to thank you guys for listening. I hope Brock's story encouraged you to keep moving forward and that we do not have to be a product of our environment. You absolutely do not. God created human beings in his image. We're very resilient, but we're designed to desire a relationship with our Creator. And in that lies the real power to overcome any obstacle. Lord willing, I'll talk to you on the next one.